This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. Chris Graham and Scott German. It's Monday and it's game week. A short week for UVA football with the game with Pitt on Friday night in Scott Stadium. And I'll tell you what, when the season started, I think this is an easy thing to say. I would even say, though, Scott, when we left the stadium Saturday afternoon, we knew we were watching a good Virginia team then, but I didn't think we were getting ready to be watching a ranked Virginia team playing Pitt on Friday night. There's a lot that had to happen. A lot of teams lost ahead of us, but this Virginia team is ranked in both polls for the first time since 2011. I tell you, Scott, I was a bit giddy when I saw this news. I know it doesn't mean a lot in the grand scheme of things just because you still got to go win some games, etc., etc. But for a fan base that is as suffering as ours, being ranked right now does mean a lot.
Well, it does, and I think that it's just sort of a barometer of where the program is. No, it doesn't really mean a lot. You get ranked, and you're in that 22 to 25 slots. You know, a lot of things, like you just said, there has to be a lot of divine intervention. Some teams ahead of you definitely have to lose. You're not just going to crack into that if nobody ahead of you loses. But I think it's sort of a measuring device of how the program is progressing under Coach Mendenhall and the respect that the program is getting, maybe the respect that Mendenhall has from other coaches and from the media. So, yeah, I can't put much in it because I think outside the top 10, maybe that's being generous, maybe outside the top 5 or 6, there's a lot of mediocrity in college football. But, hey, if we have elevated the point of being mediocre, then I'm okay with that for right now because we haven't been to that level for a while.
We're as mediocre as anybody else. That's right. Now, you're right. Outside of, to me, outside of Alabama and Clemson, it's all a crapshoot from that point on, from a playoff standpoint. But 6-2, 4-1 in the ACC Coastal. Virginia's the only ACC Coastal team ranked. There are 4 teams ranked this week from the ACC. Clemson, of course, but then the other 2 are also from the ACC Atlantic in the form of Boston College and Syracuse. And all the 3 teams outside of Clemson who are ranked all have 2 losses. Virginia has 1 loss in the ACC. As does, I think it's Boston College has 1 in the ACC. Syracuse has 2, but one of those was a close loss at Clemson. It's a nice recognition, and it in a way it raises the stakes. I mean, in a way it doesn't because the game Friday night is still the same 2 teams. They're still going to match up the same way, etc. From a fan standpoint, the fans who are heading over to Charlottesville Friday night are now going to be watching a ranked Virginia team play in Charlottesville for the first time since the season finale of 2011, the big loss to Virginia Tech. We're playing a game, and we haven't played well with the ranking in a while. But that's so long. That was Mike London's 2nd season. That's how long ago that was, that Virginia was last ranked and playing in Charlottesville as well. And, I like it. I like seeing it just because it is a recognition for the program, no question. 3rd year of Bronco Mendenhall and to see what he's doing in this short period of time, still with young players of his and some holdovers from Mike London, the previous regime. And for him to be winning games at this level and to be first place in the ACC Coastal this late into the season, it's going to be November, and we're going to be in first place going into Friday night. It is a nice recognition for the fan base. Again, I just think for our football fan base, it's been so long since we've been relevant. And, I don't know it's going to end this season the way we hope it will. I hope it will. I think this team's ceiling is the Coastal Division champion and to play in Charlotte on December 1st against Clemson. I think that's the ceiling for this program. We've never been there before, so it's hard to say that we will get there. But even if it doesn't, we at least have this week of being ranked, maybe a week or 2 of being ranked, and we'll see where it goes. So they can't take that away from us, and I was actually giddy yesterday when I saw the news, just because it's been so long, I guess.
Me as well, and it's deserved. I mean, I think the team has progressed. They, you know, really matured as a team. And who would have thought that after losing at Indiana, that this team would be nationally ranked in late October? I don't. What would the Vegas odds be on that night if you would have taken them to Vegas and said, okay, we just lost to Indiana, but by the end of October we're going to be a top 25 team? I think you would have been. That would have been some pretty hefty odds against that.
I don't think whoever you would have gone to in Vegas would ever book. They couldn't have figured out how to take your money from you, you dumb sucker, for going and doing that. You know, they wouldn't have known. Where do we put this, boss? let's just put it in the drawer.
Yeah, they would probably directed you to Gamblers Anonymous to think that you got some serious problems. But, you know, changes subjects a little bit. I had a conversation with a relative of mine who has lived out in Salt Lake City for the last 15 years. Originally from Charlottesville, and his allegiance is still to UVA. But of course, when you live in Salt Lake City, you become a BYU fan by default. And we were talking last night, and he's a pretty knowledgeable football fan, and he said that, you know, he hopes that UVA fans really know what they have, because he said this progress that Virginia is making under Coach Mendenhall is almost mirror-like of what BYU did.
Yeah, we've lost Scott, it sounds like, here for just a second. Scott, if you can hear me, keep talking or push button, whatever you got to do. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Scott, that this is the sort of a mirror image of what Bronco was able to do out at BYU. His first season there, he had a 500 record, so that's the only difference. Here, he had the 2-10 record rebuilding. He didn't have to rebuild so much there. But year two for him, he had 10 wins. Yeah, I think it was 11 wins, actually. He had a double-digit win season. And then they had a stretch there for 6 years. 5 of those years, he had double-digit win seasons. So that was definitely something that was noticeable. We're going to get Scott back on the line here. He's calling right back here. So we got Scott back on the line. Yes, Scott, I was kind of saying the same thing, that year two at BYU, he won 11 games. And so the only difference is here, year one, he had a rebuild at Virginia. But, yeah, he turned things around pretty quickly out there at BYU as well.
Three-star players and really emphasizing on speed and athleticism. And the thought process here is that, hey, we know what that developed. We know how that played out at BYU. And it appears as though he's doing the same thing in Charlottesville.
Yeah, you know, I think it's worth talking too. We were talking about this, Scott and I personally, just in the press box before the game, during the game, you know, timeouts and stuff like that. I don't think we fleshed this thought out very much on the post-game recap, though, because it's kind of brief there. But there's a lot of similarities to what we're seeing with Mendenhall and the Virginia football program to what we saw with Tony Bennett in the UVA basketball program. Bennett in year 3 took a group of kids that were, you know, holdovers from Dave Lato, and then a few of his young guys, and they went to an NCAA tournament that year. Malcolm Brogdon, for example, was just a true freshman on that team. In fact, got hurt late in the season and didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament. But that's how young that team was. That was Malcolm's first year. That was, you know, there's no Anthony Gill, there's no Leonard Parentis, there is a Joe Harris, but a young Joe Harris. I think Joe would have been a sophomore that year. Mike Scott was the holdover from Dave Lato that was key for that team. But, you know, some spare parts, spit and tape, and that team got to an NCAA tournament that third year for Tony. You look here what we're talking about with Bronco Mendenhall. You know, Alameda Zacchaeus is a holdover from the London era. You know, a nice gift, you know, that keeps on giving as far as that goes. He's a guy that's going to be a top contender for the Bolitnikoff Award. I'm a voter for the Bolitnikoff Award this year for the first time, given to the nation's top receiver. And he's going to be one of those guys he's on the watch list, and he's going to be a guy that, is going to be one of the top 5-6 vote getters for that award this year. But, outside of that, there's some other spare parts. We love Bryce Perkins, but he's a JUCO transfer. This program didn't used to take a lot of JUCO transfers, but they, obviously have done well with him. Some young guys who are, playing way over their heads as freshmen and sophomores for Bronco. So, all these spare parts kind of put together into this machine here. And in year 3, they're 6-2, 4-1 ACC, first place ACC Coastal ranked here as we had to get ready to switch the calendar from October to November. Now the season's not over yet, but there's so many parallels to what we're seeing Bronco do here, and again what we saw Tony do. And I'll throw this out there, Scott, for to add to the discussion I guess we'll have on this point. We've talked about what Tony was able to do. Now that group in 2011, I guess it was 2011, 2012, Tony's first team to go to an NCAA tournament. That third team of his. No top 100 recruits on that team. That Mike Scott ends up playing the NBA, but he was a guy that played post-grad high school basketball. He played 6 years or 5 years at Virginia with the red shirts and everything else. I mean, he wasn't a guy on the radar of a lot of people. You go from there to now with 7 top 75 recruits and all these 4-stars all over the place. I mean, that's you have that success early and you build. We're still early with Bronco, but if we see the same build out, that sky's the limit for Bronco in the program down in the next 5 to 10 years.
And you want to compare it a little more of the similarities. Both Coach Bennett and Coach Mendenhall early in their tenure, there was plenty of trips. Coach Bennett had a number of players leave the program. Same with Coach Mendenhall. And key component, one of the key aids for Coach Bennett in the basketball program, picking up transfer Anthony Gill. So could you not say that picking up Bryce Perkins is very similar to the football program as to what Tony did with picking up Anthony Gill from South Carolina?
Yeah, you could. And Gill, of course, didn't come until a couple years after that first team made the tournament, but it's a good point. And Tony's first 2 teams, famously, people might forget this and probably do forget this because of all the success the last 5-6 years. But his first 2 teams fleshed out at 30. I think they were 31 and 31 combined. The first season was 1 game under 500. Second season was 1 game over 500. And so you forget that because now you look at it and say Virginia wins 30 games a year. They win ACC championships all the time. But yeah, those first 2 teams finished out at an even 500 after 2 seasons for Tony. And yeah, you talked about the and it was more noticeable with Tony, the guys leaving. Not only the guys he inherited, but then some guys. His first couple recruiting classes were really good recruiting classes, and then the guys looked at the pack line particularly and said, that looks hard. Let's go somewhere else. And so there were a lot of defections among his first 2 recruiting classes to a point where I was critical not of what Tony was doing, but just the fact that I was worried that was going to affect Virginia's recruiting down the line to have all those guys leaving. And the adjustment that was made by Tony and the staff was, I guess, because I don't know that we know this for sure, but you have to presume that maybe they were just more upfront about the demands that would be met, that would be asked of those players to play in Tony's system. Hey, you're not just coming and playing this great arena. You're not just coming and playing the ACC. You're coming and doing all that. Plus, you're going to a great school that's going to ask a lot of you academically, and you got to work your butt off, play defense for me. And that since then you've not had that issue with guys leaving. With Bronco, he inherited a lot of Mike London guys. He made it clear, hey, here's what we're expecting. We're going to really emphasize the strength and conditioning. We're going to put you through some conditioning drills. You're going to have to earn your number. You're going to have to earn your spot in the 2 deep. I don't care what your recruiting ranking was. You got to go out there and play football and play it well, and then you'll earn your spot. And, there were guys who left. Not just the freshmen. That freshman class, that first freshman class he inherited, a lot of those guys left. But there were guys who were upperclassmen who said, I'm not sure about this, and they left. And but the guys who are left behind, young and spare parts though they may be, they're there, and they're wanting to play football. And Scott, I pointed this out to you, and we were talking about this the other day. One thing that stands out about this Virginia football team, is I don't know if you could see it on TV so much, but when you're in the stadium, those guys look like they're having a damn good time out there. Before every kickoff, before every change of possession, they're jumping around like they're little kids at a birthday party at McDonald's. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that, especially in a sport that is as grueling as football. Those guys look like they're having the time of their lives while they're playing football, and that's very noticeable.
It is, and that was another point that I had with my friend over the phone, is that the sideline looked very similar to the way the BYU sideline did. A lot of enthusiasm, a lot of jumping up and down and turning around and trying to get the crowd into it. And the crowd certainly easier to get into when you're winning, like we were Saturday. But that I believe that's enthusiasm that's sort of contagious, and I believe that's as much for the fans as it is themselves, or at least hopefully it is. So it is. It's just a new look. This entire program just has a completely different look and a completely different feel to it. And having said that, so it gives me kind of a good jumping in place for my next question I want to ask you is, now, what true Cavalier fan cannot deep down admit, okay, but the sky could be falling? And I thought about it last night after the rankings came out, and I may be wrong. We may go out and lay an egg Friday night in Scott Stadium, but I'm confident. I for once do not have that feeling that, okay, the witching hour is going to hit us. We're going to be brought down to earth by a mediocre type team. Pittsburgh, I think, at best is mediocre. They got a pretty prolific offense. Played well against Duke Saturday. Played very well against Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago. But I don't have that attitude that the Sky's playing. I just see so many improvements on this program, so many of the little things being done right, and so many of the wrong things that we were so accustomed to in the previous coaches' tenure. We're not seeing those now, and therefore, for me, I'm not looking at this like, okay, it's too good to be true. We'll find out there soon. I think we're on a roll, and I think the program's going to stay on a roll for a while.
Yeah, I'll break that down two ways. First, I'll say, the UVA fan who has been around for a while, like us and like a lot of the listeners out there, we know what it means to say, waiting for the wheels to fall off or the bloom to come off the rose, whatever the case may be, because it happens so many times, especially in football. We had in the 90s, we had all those 5-0 starts and 7-0 starts and 7-1 starts, and then teams kind of petered out as the season went on. What was different about those teams was those 5-0 teams, those 7-0 teams, 7-1 teams, whatever. It felt like we won the games, but we weren't as good as the record indicated. I mean, there was we wouldn't admit that to ourselves. We certainly wouldn't admit it to our Hokie friends and family or whatever else. But we knew inside that those teams weren't that good. And so when those teams would have meet their comeuppance, when they'd play a Florida State team with a 5 or 6-0 record and get beat 42-14, you kind of saw it coming. You just hoped it wouldn't come. And what's different about this team, and I don't even say that about last year's team. At 5-1 last year, I said this to one of the writers in the press box the other day. We were like people who just won the lottery when we were 5-1. We hadn't earned those riches. We weren't, we were still out there spending money on boats and stuff like that because we knew it wasn't going to last, and it didn't last. I mean, so that team overachieved to get to 5-1, and then they played the way they were supposed to play, and that's why they finished 6-7. This year's team at 6-2 is not last year's team at 5-1. This is a legit 6-2 football team. There's no scars here. They haven't won any games. There was that team in 2007. The year we went to the Gator Bowl in early 2008. Scott and I were both at that game. That team won NCAA record at the time, 5 games by 1 or 2 points, which means we were 9-3 in the regular season. which means we were literally like less than 10 points away from being 4-8 that season. That was a 4-8 football team that won 9 games. This is a 6-2 football team, and I would argue that you give us that Indiana game again. If we play it now straight up, we beat them by 3 touchdowns. If we play it back then without all that rain, we beat them by a couple touchdowns. We didn't play that way, so we lost the game. But this is a legit 6-2 team that probably should be 7-1 right now. And so I say all that to now say this. Pitt does worry me a bit, not because we have any faults or anything like that, but 54 points against Duke and 482 yards rushing against Duke, yeah, that worries me. And, you know, I've been saying this all season long. Virginia is built defensively right now with the lack of depth up front, but with the embarrassing riches in the secondary. We are really good in the secondary. But we're built to stop teams who pass, but teams who run can give us issues. This Pitt team can run, so that's what scares me. Not so much that we're just going to go lay an egg, but that Pitt, Pitt might have our number just because of a matchup issue as much as anything else.
Well, and that's legitimate concern, but I want to play devil's advocate here and say that maybe in years past that would be a concern, because I would be concerned about the coaching staff, the schemes, the ability of the coaching staff to make adjustments, to prepare. And we saw that. We talked about it at halftime. I mean, we were leading that game at halftime, but Carolina had its chance then back. We were really, Carolina was using the hurry up offense. We weren't able to substitute hardly at all defensive players in and out. We talked about it'll be interesting to see what kind of adjustment that Virginia could make to offset that offense that Carolina was running. And, well, I mean, they did pretty well. I mean, they made some pretty significant adjustments that I'd say pretty significant, is that we held Carolina to 1 touchdown. That came late in the game. I won't say it was a gimme touchdown, but it certainly, that game never felt like it was in jeopardy of getting away from it. Pitt does run the ball well, and we haven't really proved that we have been able to significantly stop that on a consistent basis. But, I still feel like this coaching staff has proved themselves that they are capable of planning, scheming, making adjustments, that we'll figure that out.
I'll say this, a quick update, and then I'll get back into that too. Quick update. I wish we had Jordan Mack back this week. He's not ruled out. I'm looking at the press conference today. Brooke Mendenhall's weekly press conference with the Virginia media. He didn't rule out Jordan Mack returning, but it sounds like more likely he's back next week for the game with Liberty. Jordan Mack would be a wonderful return this week. Middle linebacker, inside linebacker for this team, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. I'll go to your point, Scott, about the adjustments. Last week what Carolina was doing well, they kind of discovered by accident in the second quarter that if they didn't substitute, so essentially if you don't substitute, don't bring any guys off the sidelines, when the ball is set for play, I think it's the umpire who sets the ball down for play, he just sets it down and goes back to his position. If you change any personnel, if you sub one guy in, you have to allow the defense time to sub somebody, or at least respond, give them a chance to respond, even if they don't sub. And so that gives you the ability, defensively, if they bring in one guy or bring in a package of guys, then you can adjust your package and you can, kind of settle things down, call your play, and all that kind of thing. And what Carolina figured out was, if they didn't sub, then we couldn't sub, and they caught us on that second quarter scoring drive, the second quarter scoring drive. I guess it was the only second quarter scoring drive. They caught us in a defensive personnel grouping, and we weren't able. That wasn't advantageous to us. It was very advantageous to Carolina, and also we weren't able, because they would, literally, as soon as the ball was put down, they would snap it within 2 or 3 seconds of the ball being put down. So we weren't able to change whatever defensive. Basically, we were playing truly a 2-minute last gasp, fourth quarter defense, pretty much a prevent defense. And Carolina just marched down the field and got a touchdown. So what Virginia was able to do in the third quarter, and you saw this. I mean, you saw that Virginia stopped them. You didn't really pay attention to what they did, but the personnel grouping on the field for each of the first three drives of the third quarter was different than that grouping on that last drive in the second quarter. And you saw more pressure up front. You saw the ability for Virginia to get pressure up front. They were able to do some stunts and some different things blitz package wise. And as a result, Carolina had all those 3 and outs, and that's when Virginia took control of the game. And so the adjustment made is what won the game defensively for Virginia. Of course, offensively they're moving the ball well too. But so yeah, now you've got Pitt, and you've got Pitt running for 482, and this is a Pitt team that, and we have one less day to prepare too. Which, if you're getting ready for a team that's really doing well offensively right now, you don't want one less day. You want one more day. You would love to have a couple of days extra to prepare. So you don't have that here. I'm trying to think through schematically what you may see differently from Virginia. Because again, Virginia is so good at playing the pass game defensively. You don't want to get away too much from what you do defensively. Virginia runs the base set as a 3-3-5, 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 secondary. Basically, you're playing the nickel defense as your base defense. Your idea is get speed on the field. Well, what Pitt does is they play. I mean, Pat Narduzzi is a Wisconsin guy. He's got lots of linemen. He's got tight ends. He blocks the hell out of you and runs the ball down your throat. And so if you're going to put your speed guys out there with that, then they're going to take advantage of that. So Virginia's going to have to come up schematically, personnel-wise, with some nuances at least. They've got time to do it, but it is a challenge. It's a different challenge than you see really any other time of the season.
Yeah, and it'll be that's one of those little cat and mouse games that you like to look at. They talk about that happens in a baseball game all the time between a pitcher and a batter and a catcher. There's dynamics, but this will be an interesting little game within a game to watch. See exactly what Virginia does. Do they bring more players on the line and say to Pitt, we don't think you can pass against us even with more players up on the line, or do they pretty much stick with what they've done and hope to just limit Pitt's running game, give them some yards, but the bend not break mentality? It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've seen this Virginia team. There've been a couple teams on the schedule that run the ball not as well as Pitt's running it right now. But yeah, you've seen Virginia sort of try to lure them into throwing the ball more by doing some things. So that would be, I'd say the other side of this strategy then is offensively now, because defensively Pitt's pretty challenged. I mean, they won the game against Duke 54-45. The final score is not reflective of how close that game was. Actually, it was a tie game with like 5 seconds to go. Pitt scored a touchdown with 5 seconds to go, and then Duke actually had an issue on the kickoff, fumbled the ball, and it ended up being recovered in the end zone for a safety. So what was a tie game turned into a 9-point win for Pitt. They didn't really score 50, if you want to say it that way. It was, but effectively, yeah, the final score is 54-45. But they give up a lot of points too. In their losses, they give up points. In their wins, they give up points. They give up points. And so, as much as defensively you need to scheme, you want to stop them from scoring anywhere in the 30s or 40s if you're Virginia. But offensively, you know the pressure's on. 1, to be productive, and 2, not to turn the ball over, give them short fields. And also, a turnover means you have one less possession you can score. So, this Virginia team is going to need to be prepared offensively to win a shootout, in my opinion. I hope it doesn't come to that. I mean, I hope that Virginia does a shootout and that Pitt ends up having some issues. But I think offensively, you need to be as efficient as possible because you know that Pitt can put points on the board. So I think the pressure's on Bryce Perkins and the offense to be as productive as they can be Friday night.
Check runs the ball well. 2 different teams, 2 different coaches are running the ball well. So would you rather prepare for the way Pitt runs the ball or the way Georgia Tech? Because I have a feeling the answer would be Pitt because it's hard to replicate Georgia Tech's obviously running game in practice.
That's a good question, and I guess I'd say, they're definitely very, very different styles. Georgia Tech has smaller linemen who cut block all the time. They're a team that not only runs the ball differently, but they block differently. They don't throw the ball a lot. Obviously, they only threw the ball once against Virginia Tech. It was incomplete. So they were 0 for 1 passing and scored 49 points. What Pitt does that's a different challenge than Georgia Tech does, because Georgia Tech, they're not going to line up with 4 wide receivers. They're not going to line up with usually any wide receivers. A couple times a game, they'll have 2 guys split out just to spread you out a little bit, but they're still going to run the ball. What Pitt does that's a challenge is they run effectively out of passing looks. I mean, they're going to run out of 2 receiver, 2 tight end. They're going to run out of 1 tight end, 3 receiver, 1 back. They're going to run out of 4 receiver sets. They're going to run out of the power sets. And so you've got to be prepared on all those plays to also play pass defense because because Georgia Tech will throw the ball again, but what they do is they, the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times a game they'll throw, unless they get far behind and have to throw the ball a lot, is they'll catch all your guys looking in the backfield and it'll just throw it over your head, and the guys out there sneaking past you and you haven't even seen him. Pitt actually, when they throw the ball, they're a pro-style passing team. They just happen to be so effective at running the ball. So they're, you have to be prepared for the play action, the tight end waggling across the middle. The deep ball, because if you're looking in the backfield for the run and you're used to seeing the run, and then they sneak a guy behind you, is a little different, but a similar concept as Georgia Tech. So honestly, I think Pitt can be tougher to play than Georgia Tech, just because they don't look like a running team. They look like a passing team that just is very effective at running the ball.
I agree. They make you respect the pass. So you've got to prepare for that as well. Georgia Tech says this is the way we're going to beat. Yeah. And it's up to you to stop us. Yeah. So unfortunately, Thursday night, if that game was still being played, Georgia Tech would still be scoring touchdowns.
Yeah.
Tech had that answer, none whatsoever. So again, it all goes back to coaching, adjustment schemes, and I've really got a lot of confidence in what's going on right now with the program and the coaching staff.
Oh yeah, I've got confidence in that group, but it's a tall order with one less day. We actually heard Bronco Mendenhall at the end of his press conference on Saturday. I mean, Bronco famously likes he and his staff to be able to take Sundays off. There's a religious aspect to that, but there's also just every 7 days you need a break aspect to that. And unlike a lot of college coaches, he says, Sunday, let's take it off, spend time with your family, recharge batteries, come back in and work on Monday. You work your butt off Monday through Saturday, basically. But Sunday, you take the day off. Well, they weren't able to do that this week because of Friday being, game day this week, 1 day up. He was even saying that for the coaching staff, he wanted the players to enjoy the win this past Saturday, but for the coaching staff, they were already, in his mind, Saturday afternoon after that game was already Monday from game week perspective. So, it's quick. And, with Georgia Tech, you kind of know what you're getting because you play them every year, and they do those weird things. But at least now, a few years in for Bronco and his staff, other ACC schools, you see Paul Johnson, you've seen him for 10 years. You know what to do. You just have to go do it. There's a similarity with Pitt in a way. Again, they play Wisconsin-style football. They have big linemen. They have big tight ends. They have a big quarterback, a big running back. They're not going to outspeed you. They're just going to ram it down your throat and try to take advantage of you. But it is a challenge. I think that the key in this one, and Bronco won't like hearing this, but the key in this one is going to actually be making sure the offense is as good as it can be, because I'm not saying we can't stop Pitt. I just think that it's going to be tough stopping them. So, but other teams have had, for the most part, have had pretty much ease scoring on this Pitt team, and that's not been an issue. So I want to throw out for you, Scott. We were chatting about this in the press box too. We kind of do this every week. We go to a game in Charlottesville. Again, attendance was pretty light Saturday afternoon, 43,000 for a game with first place in the Coastal on the line. Now this game has first place in the Coastal on the line too. Pitt's 4-4, but they're 3-1 in the Coastal, or 3-1 in the ACC. Only a half game behind Virginia in the Coastal. It's a Friday night game, national TV audience. So on paper, all that adds up to a sellout crowd. But we know it's not going to be a sellout crowd. Probably anything close to that. I think, and we decided this the other day, Scott, so I wanted us to just kind of talk about this, but we know it's beyond now just hoping people show up. There's a little bit of impetus here on UVA Athletics to figure out a way to get people to games, because we can't just keep hoping they're going to come. We've got to get them. We've got to do some creative things to get people to come to the games, other than just kind of opening the gates and hoping they show up.
Yeah, and that is we discussed. Saturday, that we looked, late in the game. Well, before the game was decided, the stadium certainly wasn't empty. Nearly 20,000 empty seats, and I think my point was, those are the fans that you have lost for one reason or the other. A decade of horrible football, the reseating of the season ticket holders, the new flat screen TVs, the LEDs, the 4Ks, the cost of tickets, whatever you want to, attribute that to. Those fans are gone, and they're probably not coming back. So the challenge is now to create a new fan base. And if you've got a good product on the field, which we do currently have a good product, then you've got to find a way. We say the athletic department, the marketing department, has got to find a way to bring those fans into the stadium. And if you have to give away tickets, give them away, because we joked Saturday. Neither one of us saw one of those aluminum bleacher seats get up and go buy a hot dog or Coke or a $5 overpriced tube of stale popcorn. Not one time did I see that happen. And so if you have to give away tickets, I don't know what happened to Band Day, where they would have practically every high school in the state of Virginia come out and bring their bands, but that could have easily added 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people, 6,000 additional fans in that stadium, made it louder. I'm not, giving them an F right now for their marketing, but I'm saying they need to step it up, because they've got good product. And you got to strike, both of us are marketing type people. That's when you strike. And if they're sitting there today looking at the possibility of 20,000 empty seats for Friday night, somebody better be coming up with a very creative marketing plan to try to get half of those filled.
Yeah, not only do those aluminum bleachers not buy a hot dog or stale popcorn, I didn't hear one of those empty aluminum bleachers on third down when Carolina had a ball trying to get a first down and keep a drive going. I didn't hear any of those aluminum bleachers trying to make noise to cause a false start or something of that nature. So those empty seats don't make noise. Those empty seats don't help the game day environment, and they don't spend on other things too. And, I've got a problem with this, and it's not just with UVA, it's other sporting venues too, but all right, so we know that Virginia doesn't sell 20,000 tickets at least for every game. We haven't had more than 44,000 this season yet for a game. So that's 17, 20,000 plus tickets available each night. Yet you go to the website and they're still selling tickets for face value. You go to StubHub and you're paying more than face value for certain tickets. To me, the value of a ticket that's not sold is zero. There's no value to that ticket. You can't sell a ticket to Friday night's game on Saturday. I guess you can, but you're not going to, and it's probably illegal to do so. So it's a perishable item, kind of like a hotel room. If you don't rent the hotel room Friday night, you can't rent Friday night's hotel room Saturday night. You just can't do that. It's just not possible. So yeah, free tickets. I mean, let's put butts in those seats. If they're not paying for them, well, guess what? The empty seats aren't paying for themselves either. And they can't cheer, they can't boo, they can't, get excited when your team's up. And also, you were talking about Band Day. That's something we did in the past to help. YMCA Day could be good. Boys and Girls Club Day could be good. Insurance Agent Spectacular, whatever it is, just put butts in the seats for lots of reasons. One, the immediate, which is, those people will buy a drink, they'll buy a hot dog, they'll buy the stale popcorn, they'll cheer. But also, okay, so let's say we give out 10,000 free tickets for Friday night because we know we're not going to sell out. Those 10,000 free tickets have a great time. It's a Friday night. It's a nationally ranked team. Oh, my God, we haven't come to a game in so long. It's so much fun. If they bring their kids with them, even better, because now the kids are hooked. They want to paint orange and blue on their face. They want to buy a little caveman doll on the way out of the stadium. And now those kids are hooked, and the kids say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, they're playing Liberty next week. Can we go to that game? And then next season, when the season tickets come up, hey, let's get those season tickets. That was a lot of fun. I can't believe that we hadn't done that in so long. And so all of a sudden, you're building towards the future of your program. And right now, what we're doing is we're just saying, woe is us. We can't get people to come to games. There are lots of people who want to go to the games. We're just not giving them reasons to, and it's just incompetence on the part of the marketing folks at UVA Athletics. And I'll say this, Carla Williams ain't listening to this podcast. I know there are other people listening to this podcast who I think have the ear of Carla Williams. I mean, Scott was a salesperson for 30 years. I've been a marketing person for 15 years. I don't think anything we're saying here is revolutionary. It's common sense, but the common sense is lacking right now, and I'm surprised by that, given the amount of wisdom and learnedness over there on grounds at UVA. I'm astounded that they haven't figured this out yet.
Well, and there are those that will say that if you follow the pricing principles and stuff, because of market-driven prices, that people want to go, and the tickets are being sold to that app, and you can get a ticket for a significantly under face value. Well, that might be true, but that's giving you random tickets, maybe a couple deciding to go to a game. They look at the weather and see the weather may not be that bad, then all of a sudden they decide to buy it. We're talking about getting rid of bulk amounts of tickets. We're talking about, finding a way to attract 1,500 groups of 1,500 groups, a couple of thousand, aka the idea of the high school band. The UVA Health Systems Day, which I have not seen this year, waiting for that. Maybe it is Friday night, where they get everyone associated with the UVA Health System gets a discounted or a free ticket. Hopefully that might be coming Friday night. But if we settle on 43,000 seats for a Friday night game under the lights, national TV, again, major ramifications, then I'm sure that Carla Williams is going to sit back and let this market department continue. Give me full plug on those guys, because they don't need the plug pulled on them. And if the marketing department is sitting on this, okay, if the product is good, those fans will come back. They might, some fans might come, but they're not going to get the numbers they need. They have to find a way to attract new fans, a new fan base, grow the fan base. And, I think that there certainly has to be able to be done on this.
Yeah. I mean, we work, among other things, Augusta Free Press has a community theater, the Wayne Theater in Waynesboro, as a client. And a lot of our shows sell out or come close to selling out with all the efforts we put in, and they sell the face value, and it's great and make a lot of money. Some of the shows don't, and the shows that don't, we actually will work with our radio station partners, our partners in the local print media, with Facebook. We'll give tickets away because we think, same thing I've just explained, I guess, a person sitting in the Wayne Theater watching a show, having a great time, may come back for future shows and have an even better time, and they'll pay next time. Though the empty seats don't leave the stadium with warm and fuzzy feelings. The empty seats stay there. They stay there cold after everybody's gone, and they'll still be empty seats the next time there's a game with people not buying those tickets. So, it's just maybe you give up a little bit now, but you're building towards your future. I mean, we're asking Bronco Mendenhall, and we're asking all those kids in that locker room. The kids have to run their butts off, not just during the season, but in the off season. They're up at 6 in the morning running the stairs at Scott Stadium. They're lifting weights. They're doing all the stuff. They go to class. They got all the stuff they got to do to get better as people and better as football players. And then during the season, they're working hard. To do all this to get better for their side of things. I think we need to ask the same thing out of the people who run the show. It's not just this is not Field of Dreams. You don't just build it and he will come or they will come or whatever else. You still got to go give people a reason to come. And the reason to come isn't just, hey, you're good, because they can watch it on TV. They can watch it on their phones. They can watch it on their TV and their phones. They can sit at home and tailgate in their house where it's warm. They don't have to worry about traffic, the parking situation around Scott Stadium, which can be a challenge a lot of times. All those factors work against people coming to games, and it's not just, again, at Scott Stadium. The Redskins-Cowboys played a couple weeks ago. There were empty seats for Redskins-Cowboys. The Redskins are in first place in the NFC East, playing the Cowboys. Marquee matchup, NFL, empty seats in FedEx Field. So it's not just UVA having this issue, but you got to be creative. Otherwise, we can downsize the stadiums and put that money elsewhere, I guess. But it is frustrating that our folks aren't paying better attention to that. There are a lot of smart people over there, and I think they just need to kind of engage a bit more with tap into some new ideas, I guess.
Yeah, and I believe that this isn't something we're having to hope that someone alerts Carla Williams to. I think that our new AD has her thumb on the pulse of everything that's right, everything that's going in the right direction, as well as everything that's wrong and everything that's trending in the wrong direction. I think she's seeing this, and she's too smart of a individual to just let it continue on and hope that all those fans that used to come to football games come back, because that's not something you want to hit your horse. That's not a wagon you want to hit your horse up with, because I don't believe it will. I know personally a lot of them that aren't coming back. They're content watching it on TV. They're still supporting, but they're done coming to the stadium. So, and that's fine. That's their the discretion to do however they want, spend their money the way they want. You just have to be creative and go out and build your fan base. Build it and bring in some new people, bring in some young people.
All right, so we're getting towards the end of the podcast here, and we've got to call this game. Got to break down this game, Scott. I'll let you go first. Last line I saw for this game was UVA by 8.5. We'll go with that one. I haven't looked in the last hour to see if there's any change, and I'm sure as the week goes on it'll fluctuate a little bit. But UVA by 8.5 over Pitt. Break down the game, Scott, and give us your predicted final score.
Well, I think what we talked about earlier, Pitt has to run the ball effectively, and I think if you can stop that and let them do not a lot of big plays, Virginia's going to be in a good position. Offensively, we're going to score some points, and I believe we can. I believe get the players back, getting them back in the flow of things. Be a little creative with Bryce. What we've seen, he had a tremendous game Saturday. Maybe we talked about possibly his best game of the Cavalier. Although it's been a short career, 8 games, I think he agreed that was his best performance. I think we build on that. I think we figure out how to maybe not stop Pitt's running game, but certainly not give up 400 yards. And I think Virginia can bring that spread fairly easily. I think it's going to be a great crowd Friday night. I'm not predicting any numbers, but I think it's going to be an enthusiastic crowd, a loud crowd, and I'm looking at something maybe in the likes of a 37-21 UVA win.
Okay, I'll go less than for crowd. I'll go less than what we saw Saturday. So that's under 43,000. And then for the game, I'm thinking it's going to be, I'm bullish, I'm bearish, not bullish, I guess, to use stock market terminology. I think Virginia wins, but that doesn't cover. And the game, I'll be honest, the game scares me. This game scares me more than any of the other. There's 4 games left on the schedule. This game is the only one that scares me, honestly, from this perspective. I think this Pitt team right now is really rolling, really clicking offensively. I think Virginia 44, Pitt 38, and Bronco's not going to like hearing me say that 38 part. If he were to listen to this podcast, he's not going to like hearing that 38 number. But I think Pitt scores on us, and I think we just have to outscore them. I think it's going to be a shootout. It'll be exciting for the fans, those in attendance and watching at home. it's going to be nerve-wracking as hell for those of us who are big UVA fans. But, yeah, I think Virginia 44-38, and it's going to be a barn burner, I believe.
Chris, I heard Coach Mendenhall say after the press conference, you're right, the coaching staff was heading directly to the Q Center Saturday afternoon to start preparing for Pitt. So I'm going to say that if Coach Mendenhall at any time this week listens to our podcast, I'm going to be the first one on the bandwagon to get a petition up to fire Coach Mendenhall.
Yeah, he's not getting any insight from us here as far as the X and O's go.
If he's got that kind of spare time, then we got problems.
Well, no. Now, okay, I'll say that's a great thing to say as we're finishing up for this reason. You don't just have to sit and listen to this podcast. I'm somebody who, when I listen to podcasts, like yesterday, I did a 10-mile training run. I'm folks who listen regularly enough know I'm a distance runner. I've run 3 marathons, etc. And I'm trying to get ready for a race early next year. And so yesterday I'm doing a 10-mile run, and I listened to a podcast. I didn't listen to our podcast because I already know what I'm saying. But so I'm listening to a podcast. And so for a 10-mile run for me yesterday was about an hour and 20 minutes. We're at 50 minutes of this podcast. So we know the Bronco works out, on a regular basis. He's a coach who doesn't just work from 3 in the morning until midnight and not take care of himself. He does work out regularly. So Coach Mendenhall, if you happen to be listening while you're working out, that's okay. We won't start that petition Scott talked about. If you're listening while you're getting your bike ride in or your run in, because I think Coach runs a little bit too, your push-ups, your workout, your weightlifting, whatever, that's okay. And for the listeners out there, I think it's a good encouragement. One, listen to our podcast. Two, get off your butt a little bit. Go out there and sweat a little bit. It's going to make your long-term health better. And I say that for this reason, because for the long-term health. All right, so this is 2018. I'm 46 years old. You guys out there and gals listening are varying ages, obviously. The next 20 years of Virginia sports are going to be very interesting. With Coach Bennett in his late 40s, Coach Mendenhall, I think, is right around his late 40s as well. With what they're doing and how they're building, we've gone through a lot of bad football, a lot of bad basketball. You're going to want to be healthy, is what I'm trying to say here. You're going to want to live 20 more years plus to enjoy the next good 20 years of UVA basketball, UVA football. So listen to our podcast, and while you're listening, get on an elliptical, ride your exercise bike, go for a walk while you're listening, go for a jog while you're listening, but listen, but also move around a little bit because you're going to want to be around to enjoy all the success we have coming next 20, 25 years or so. Scott, I'm going to encourage you to do the same thing because, we're getting older too. We're going to have to move around a little bit more so we can be around and keep talking about this for the next 20 years or so because you and I, Scott, have endured a lot of bad sports together, and now I'm looking forward to these good years.
Oh, I agree. Yep, and take care of myself because I think there's a lot of good years, and I've suffered through enough to sit down tonight and pound down 6 Big Macs thinking, oh, well, it is what it is. I want to see this out. I want to ride. I want to be able to ride this carnival ride for a long time.
So listen, work out. Don't pound the 6 Big Macs. That's not advised. I had a doctor's appointment today, so I'm sure that my doctor, UVA Health System doctor, would not recommend that part of the action. But enjoy your life and enjoy your UVA sports. And also, tell your friends about our podcast. They can go through their podcast app on their phone. They can go to iTunes, Google Play. There's lots of places to find us. Of course, the Augusta Free Press website, too. And if Coach Mendenhall is listening, Coach, go get him. For Scott German, I'm Chris Graham signing off. Wahoo-wah.